Hi, are you ready to review the safe operation of Airbrakes? I'm Lou Grill. I'm a professional driver and trainer. I'll be your instructor today. My goal is to help you prepare for the CDL written Airbrakes test. Welcome to the video review of the CDL Airbrakes test. You have made a good choice in choosing this video for your review. If you intend to drive a truck that has airbrakes, you will need to pass a written test and take your performance test in a truck with full or partial airbrakes. Bus driver applicants will also need to pass a written test and take an on-road test in a bus that has airbrakes. Bus driver CDL applicants will also need to pass a written test and take their on-road test in a bus that has airbrakes. There is also an airbrake restriction. Let's review it quickly. Here's how you can be restricted from operating a truck or bus with airbrakes. 1. You perform your driving skills road test in a vehicle that is not equipped with airbrakes. 2. You fail the written test or skills test for airbrakes. In each case, your state will show on your CDL that you are restricted from driving a vehicle with airbrakes. This means, of course, that you cannot legally drive any commercial motor vehicle that has airbrakes unless you pass the written test, and if you must do the performance tests, you must take the drive test with an airbrake-equipped vehicle. Fair enough? Let me make one more comment. Most of the questions on this CDL test are truck-based. That is, they appear designed for truck drivers. And if you're a bus driver, don't let this upset or throw you off. One reason the bus driver is given the same test is because the CDL allows a driver to operate any vehicle in that class. So, a bus driver must be familiar with the test questions that may be truck-based. If you drive any commercial vehicle, the CDL Airbrakes test is for you. So is this video and the study book to be used with it. The video can be used with the study book, or it can stand alone. One benefit of using the study book is that you can review everything covered in the video, plus receive help in answering 30 questions that may be asked on your state's test. And chances are your state will ask only 15 to 20 questions, but why not study them all? Plus, this gives you a good review of all the safe driving practices important to you. Now, here are some review strategies for using the video most effectively. 1. View the video part by part. The video is divided into parts to help you do this. Don't try to cover too much in one session. 2. Work along with me. 3. Read each question and its 3 answer choices carefully. 4. Stop your VCR and try to answer the question yourself before you let me answer it. 5. At the end of each part, stop the video and review in your study book the questions covered. It contains more review questions to study. Before we start, let's review what we are trying to do. The purpose of the video and the study book is to improve your preparation for passing the test. To do this, we will be reviewing 12 safety concepts and a practice test question or 2 about each one of them. For more preparation, follow along with the study book and its illustrated review of 30 test questions. You'll benefit and I'll achieve my goal. Let's get started with these 2 reminders. First, compressed air makes the airbrake system work. Second, the principle of any airbrake system is to store air under pressure and then deliver it on demand to the air chambers located at each brake wheel. The foundation brakes, through friction, then act to slow and stop the wheels. Air brakes are a safe way of stopping large vehicles if the brakes are well maintained and used right. However, you must know more about air brakes than you need to know with simpler brake systems used on light vehicles. Let's get started with Part 1. Here's the concepts we'll cover. They are arranged in the same order in your study book. Our first question is about air brake systems, and it is a fill-in-the-blank type of multiple-choice question. Modern air brake systems combine 3 different braking systems. They are the service, parking, and the blank brake systems. A, emergency. B, foot. C, drum. Answer A is correct. Air brake systems are 3 braking systems combined: the service brake system, the parking brake system, and the emergency brake system. The service brake system applies and releases the brakes when you use the brake pedal during normal driving. The parking brake system applies and releases the parking brakes when you use the parking brake control. The emergency brake system uses parts of the service and parking brake system to stop the vehicle in the event of a braking system failure. Let's look at 2 more questions about air brake systems. Your study book reviews 7 test items on this topic. All vehicles that have air brakes also have A, a hydraulic system in case the air brake system fails. B, a supply pressure gauge. C, an air use gauge. Answer B is correct. All vehicles with air brakes have a pressure gauge connected to the air tank. This gauge is called the supply pressure gauge. If the vehicle has a dual air brake system, there will be a gauge for each half of the system. Sometimes there is a single gauge with 2 needles for a dual system. The most common type of foundation brake found on heavy vehicles is the A, disc brake. B, wedge drum brake. C, S-cam drum brake. Answer C is correct. Foundation brakes are used at each wheel. The most common type is the S-cam drum brake. Wedge brakes and disc brakes are less common than S-cam brakes. Our next question is about spring brakes. During normal driving, spring brakes are usually held back by A, bolts or clamps. B, air pressure. C, spring pressure. Answer B is correct. All trucks, truck tractors, and buses must have emergency brakes and parking brakes. These brakes must be held on by mechanical force because air pressure can eventually leak away. Spring brakes are usually used to meet these needs. When driving, powerful springs are held back by air pressure. If the air pressure is removed, the springs put on the brakes. A parking brake control in the cab allows the driver to let air out of the spring brakes. This lets the spring put on the brakes. A leak in the air brake system that causes all air to be lost will also cause the springs to put on the brakes. The braking power of the spring brakes, A, is not affected by the condition of the service brakes. B, can only be tested by highly trained brake service people. C, depends on the service brakes being in adjustment. Did you select answer C? If so, you're correct. The braking power of the spring brakes depends on the service brakes being in adjustment. If the brakes are not adjusted right, neither the regular brakes nor the emergency parking brakes will work right. Next, the air compressor. The air compressor governor controls A, when the brake chambers release pressure, B, air pressure applied to the brakes, C, when air is pumped into the air tanks. Answer C is correct. The governor controls when the air pressure will pump air into the air storage tanks. When air tank pressure rises to the cutout level, somewhere around 125 pounds per square inch, or PSI, the governor stops the compressor from pumping air. When the tank pressure falls to the cut-in pressure, around 100 pounds per square inch, the governor allows the compressor to start pumping air again. Let's try another one. If the air compressor develops a leak, what keeps air in the tanks? A, the one-way check valve, B, the emergency relay valve, or C, the tractor protection valve. Answer A is the correct choice. The one-way check valve keeps air in the tanks if there is a leak in the air compressor. The next two items review air pressure gauges. The supply pressure gauge shows how much pressure A, you have used on this trip, B, is in the air tanks, C, is going to the brake chambers. Answer B is correct. All vehicles with air brakes have a pressure gauge connected to the air tank. If the vehicle has a dual air brake system, there'll be a gauge for each half of the system, or a single gauge with two needles. These gauges tell you how much pressure is in the air tanks. The application pressure gauge shows how much air pressure you, A, have used in this trip, B, have in the air tanks, or C, are applying to the brakes. Answer C is correct. The air application pressure gauge shows how much air pressure you are applying to the brakes. This gauge is not on all vehicles. When going down steep grades, if you have to push harder on the brake pedal to hold the same speed, it means that your brakes are fading. You should slow down and use a lower gear. The need for increased pressure can also be caused by air leaks, mechanical problems, or brakes that are out of adjustment. This ends part 1. Now, let's review what is covered in part 2. Air loss rate, low air pressure, alcohol evaporator, air tank drainage. How do you test your air leakage rate? What is the air loss rate for a straight vehicle, a combination vehicle? The next two test items review these questions for you. A straight truck air brake system should not leak at a rate of more than blank pounds per square inch per minute with the engine off and the brakes released. A, 6, B, 4, or C, 2. Answer C is correct. To test your air leakage rate, Make sure the air system is fully charged. There's usually about 125 pounds per square inch. Turn off the engine, release the service brake, and time the air pressure drop. For a single vehicle, such as a straight truck or a bus, the loss rate should be less than 2 pounds per square inch. The air loss rate for combination vehicles should be less than 3 pounds per square inch. That last question dealt with air loss rate with the brakes off. But how about when the brakes are on? Here's the question. The air loss rate for a straight truck with the engine off and the brakes on should not be more than A, 1 pound per square inch in 30 seconds, B, 2 pounds per square inch in 45 seconds, or C, 3 pounds per square inch. Answer C is correct. After checking the air loss rate with the engine off and the brakes released, put the brakes on and apply 90 pounds or more with the brake pedal. After the initial pressure drop, if the air pressure falls more than 3 pounds per square inch in 1 minute, then the air loss rate is too much. The rate is for straight truck vehicles. For combination vehicles, the air loss rate should not be more than 4 pounds per square inch in 1 minute. Each of the last two questions could be easily misunderstood if they're not read very carefully. Let's compare the two questions. Read them over. Notice the difference? Now, let's review what to do when the low air pressure warning comes on while driving. Of the choices below, the first thing to do when a low air pressure warning comes on is A, stop and safely park as soon as possible. B, shift to the next gear. C, open the air supply control valve. Did you select answer A? That's the safe thing to do. Tractor and straight truck spring brakes will come on fully when the air pressure drops to a range of 20 to 45 pounds per square inch, typically 20 to 30 psi. Do not wait for the brakes to come on automatically. When the low air pressure warning light and buzzer first come on, bring the vehicle to a safe stop right away, while you still can control the brakes. The driver must be able to see a warning before air pressure in the service area falls below A, 40 psi, B, 60, or C, 80. Answer B is correct. A warning signal you can see must come on before the air pressure in the tanks falls below 60 pounds or 1/2 of the governor cutout pressure on an older vehicle. There must be a low air pressure warning signal on vehicles with air brakes. The warning is usually a red light. A buzzer may also sound. It should be noted on some large buses, the warning devices often signal at 80 to 85 pounds per square inch. Your air brakes test may have a question or two on alcohol evaporators. Here's one of them. If your vehicle has an alcohol evaporator, it is there to A, rid the wet tank of alcohol that condenses and sits on the bottom. B, eliminate the need for daily tank draining. Or C, reduce the risk of ice in air brake valves in cold weather. Some air brake systems have an alcohol evaporator to put alcohol into the air system. This helps to reduce the risk of ice in air brake valves and other parts during cold weather. Ice inside the system can make the brakes stop working. During cold weather, check the alcohol container and fill it as necessary every day. Even with the alcohol evaporator, you will still need to drain the air tanks daily to get rid of the water and oil, unless, of course, the system has automatic drain valves. Why drain water from compressed air tanks? A. The low boiling point of water reduces braking power. B. Water can freeze in cold weather and cause brake failure. C. To keep from fouling the air compressor oil. Answer B is the best choice. Compressed air usually has some water and some compressor oil in it. This is bad for the air brake system. For example, the water can freeze in cold weather and cause brake failure. The water and oil tend to collect in the bottom of the air tank where the drain valve is located. This ends part 2. In this part, we review questions on brake inspection, brake fade, emergency braking, stopping time and distance. Let's lead off with a question on brake inspection. It is the type that needs careful reading. To check the free play of manual slack adjusters on S-cam brakes, you should park on A. Level ground with the parking brake on, and then apply the service brake. B. Level ground, chalk the wheels, and turn off the parking brakes. Or C. Level ground and drain off air pressure before adjusting them. This test item wants you to complete a statement. The statement describes the first steps to take in checking the free play of manual slack adjusters. Here are the steps to follow when checking the manual slack adjusters on S-cam brakes. 1. Park on level ground. 2. Chalk the wheels to keep the vehicle from moving. 3. Turn off the parking brakes so you can move the slack adjusters. These steps make answer B the best choice, but let's continue with the procedure. 4. Use gloves and pull hard on each slack adjuster that you can reach. 5. Check free play. If a slack moves more than about 1 inch or the push rod attaches to it, it probably needs adjustment. 6. The last step to have is the adjustment made. So, the question is best answered by choice B, and your safety is best served by checking the slack adjusters. Vehicles with too much slack in the brakes can be very hard to stop. Out of adjustment brakes are the most common problem found in roadside inspections. Another problem is brake fade. When you use the brakes, they get hot. Brakes can take a lot of heat, but brakes will stop working if there's too much heat. Too much heat is caused by trying to slow down from too high a speed, too many times, or too quickly. The brakes fade when they get too hot. This brings up the question. Your brakes are fading when A. You have to push harder on the brake pedal to control your speed on a downgrade. B. The brake pedal feels spongy when you apply pressure. Or C. You release pressure on the brake pedal and speed increases. Answer A is best here. Your brakes are fading when you have to push harder on the brake pedal to control your speed on a downgrade. The right way to go down long grades is to use a lower gear and go slowly enough that a fairly light, steady use of the brakes will keep you from speeding up. If you drive slowly, the brakes will be able to get rid of the heat, so they'll work as they should. Now, how about emergency braking and stops? If you must make an emergency stop, brake so you A. use the same full power of the brakes and lock them. B. Can steer and your vehicle stays in a straight line. C. Use the hand brake first. If you selected answer B, you are correct. If you must make an emergency stop, brake so you can steer and your vehicle stays in a straight line. There are two methods of emergency braking. One, stab braking. And two, controlled braking. Emergency stab braking is when you A. press hard on the brake pedal and apply full hand valve until you stop. B. Apply the hand valve for 1 second, then push hard on the brake pedal. C. Brake as hard as you can, release the brake when the wheels lock, put the brakes on again when the wheels start rolling. Answer C is correct. When making emergency stops, you should brake so your vehicle stays straight and you could still steer. Stab braking is one way of doing this. Here's how stab braking works. A. Press on the brake pedal as hard as you can. B. Release the brakes when the wheels lock up. C. As soon as the wheels start rolling, put on the brakes fully again. It could take up to 1 second for the wheels to start rolling after you release the brakes. Make sure you stay off the brakes long enough to let the wheels roll again. If you do not, the vehicle may not stay in a straight line. Remember, during emergency stops, brake so your vehicle stays in a straight line and you can still steer. That's good advice. And this leads to a review of stopping time and distance. Air braking takes more time than hydraulic braking because A. Brakes use different brake drums. B. Takes more time to flow through the lines than hydraulic fluids. C. Is always leaking through airline fittings. Answer B is correct. With air brakes, there is an added delay. The time required for the brakes to work after the brake pedal is pushed. With hydraulic brakes, used on cars and light or medium trucks, the brakes work instantly. With air brakes, it takes a little time, 1/2 a second or more, for the air to flow through the lines to the brakes. Total stopping distance for air brakes is longer than the stopping distance for hydraulic brakes due to blank distance. A. Perception. B. Reaction. C. Brake lag. Answer C is correct. The brake lag distance causes it to take longer to stop with air brakes than with hydraulic brakes. Thus, the total stopping distance for vehicles with air brake systems is made up of 4 different factors: perception distance, reaction distance, brake lag distance, and effective braking distance. The 4 factors make up total stopping distance. This diagram compares the factors that make up the total stopping distance for hydraulic braking and air braking. This ends our review of the CDL air brakes test. I hope you found the video review helpful. A review of your air brakes test study book will be helpful also. Remember, it contains all of the questions found in this video, plus others. Good luck with your CDL tests, and thanks for joining us.
I'm Ed Keniston, President of the Professional Truck Driver Institute of America. The Institute works to advance professionalism among the nation's truck and commercial vehicle drivers. This video is a good example of the special training required of professional drivers. If you are one of America's 6 million commercial drivers, we salute you and wish you success in your CDL preparation. We also salute the following individuals and organizations whose technical expertise and assistance made this video possible and who, like us, recognize the importance of our nation's commercial vehicle drivers.